Hi, this is Nick Lowry at Winsong Dojo. My good friend Derek Hall here, and we're going to talk a bit about a term called mitori geiko. Mitori geiko is most commonly translated as to learn by observing. And in one sense, in the most common sense that it tends to get translated, you guys watching videos on YouTube or you sitting on the edge of class and watching what's going on or taking lessons, just by observing from the outside, are participating in mitori geiko. But there's a deeper sense of this term that I was reminded of recently, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because really part of what's going on in mitori geiko is how we become receptive, how we learn through our perception of what's going on in the other person while we're in relation to them. And this is particularly very important when we're thinking about doing toshu randori or hand randori, that we have to learn to become less fixated on the confusion and the chaos, which is what randori represents, dealing with the chaos of life. He's a chaotic person over there. I don't know what he's going to do. He could jump at any moment. And having to function in relation to this chaotic environment. Very similar to kata, when you only have two people participating in a toshu randori situation, it's as if we're both tori, we're both nage, we're both uke at the same time. And so there's no structured relationship of who's going to do what to whom. Everybody's just acting and reacting as they will. And so there's a semi-competitive element that gets in here that produces chaos. In kata, you have an ordered structure. You have an understanding that comes into the training from the very beginning. From the time you've bowed, there's an understanding. Oh, you're going to be the person throwing, I'm going to be the person falling, and it's all clear and obvious. That's a cooperative relationship, low coefficient of chaos, and it enables a lot of training to take place with high degrees of repetition and consistency so that you can get good effects. After a while, you have to turn it back around so that both people are in the chaotic condition. We're both throwers, we're both reacting, we're both defending, we're both doing the whole game, and that's where the chaos comes in. You can also make chaos just by adding extra people. When you have multiple people attacking you at once, wow, it gets very chaotic very fast, because the number of problems coming at you and the amount of situational awareness you have to bring becomes overwhelming very fast. And situational awareness and perception is really what I want to concentrate on, because so much of what we do, but we don't think about or we don't talk about, is taking that massive chaos that's in front of us and reducing it into an ordered structure. We have to have some way to navigate chaos. We have to have a map. Or if you're going to a restaurant and you just want to order food, well, the food is too arbitrary, it's too broad. You need to look at the menu. You have to have a map or a menu or a way to narrow down the total possibilities of the chaos down to the meal that you want to eat, or down to the direction and location that you want to get to from here to there on a map. So we know we need a map, and to a large degree, most of our training constitutes that map. But as we get into more deeper levels of chaos, we have to broaden our perceptual framework enough to understand the generalities of what we're looking at. So when we're dealing with another human being in a chaotic situation, we're training our perception to lock on to certain triggering mechanisms. The most obvious of these we talk about as distance, my distance. And this is a relational trigger. So the first level, as we're at some arbitrary distance apart and we're going to approach, there should be already a perception of, are we in the near condition, are we in the far condition? Your subconscious mechanism should already be monitoring the distance issue right off the bat. As soon as somebody becomes evident in your field of view and as a potential problem or a potential partner to dance with, you should already be measuring subconsciously that distance. And as that distance changes, it gets closer or farther away, that monitoring is going on automatically. As we make the final closure from the point of reactivity of my distance, where we're at 2 arms length, and we begin to close from here, we can have closure that happens, and as he closes and I close, it happens very shallow. So now we've penetrated but we're just barely inside on each other. We could both attack and defend, but we're in a fairly shallow state. Or as we make that closure, are we coming in medium? Are we coming in deep? Are we coming all the way into like a judo close relationship? So the relational triggers have to do with distance and have to do with depth of penetration once the engagements come in. Once that's occurred, you have also a sense of dealing with the person in their body and getting a sense, is this a dynamic or a static structure? In other words, as he experiences you and you experience him, are you getting a lot of feedback in terms of resistance and trying to make, to freeze energy? Or are you getting a lot of acceleration and movement out of the guy? And so that's another relational factor that you can read from a great distance. If he's walking casually in, that gives me one kind of sense. If he's standing back and just barely wanting to shuffle in very cautiously, it's a very different kind of thing. If he's running at me, wow, different altogether. So the relational issues, the triggering mechanisms that the subconscious needs to be trained to notice for effective response, for effective reflexive action, near and far, deep and shallow, dynamic and static type conditions, and the variance within those. That's the first set of parameters that you want to be inculcating through your training activity, so that from a great distance, before you've ever made contact, you're already reading the man, you're reading his frame, you're reading what's going on in his body. Now, this is not happening on the conscious level so much. Good training will bring this into your unconscious and start monitoring this as an automatic reference point. But you have to be aware of it, because sometimes as we go through our training and we get more and more advanced, we find out, oh, I've had a little blind spot, you know. Maybe I've been pretty good about noticing near and far, but I haven't really been gauging so well on the deep and shallow, you know. You'll find through a little awareness applied to your training, say, oh, that, you know, you'll find the areas where you have pretty sharp perception about what's going on, and areas where it's a little murky or a little dull, and you need to sharpen your perception. You need to tune your eyes and your hands, because when we talk about mitori and looking, observing the guy, we're observing not only with our eyes, we're observing with the felt sense coming through our hands. The felt sense, any part of our body touching his part of his body. You're picking up signals from this. You're using it like an antenna, and you're receiving as much information as you can through all body contact and through all visual contact. So those are the two primary. I suppose there are subtler signals coming, you know, how does the guy smell, or what's he saying, but you can get very seduced by people talking to you while they're coming in to attack you. So you got to be a little cautious about tuning in with the ears. Mostly eyes and mostly physical touch is what we're looking for, particularly in the first parameter of relational triggers.